Welcome to our deep dive today into, The Trial by Franz Kafka. It's a book that takes us into this world of like unsettling bureaucracy and existential questions.
A lot of those in Kafka, for
Yeah.
sure.
And so imagine being arrested one morning with no explanation
Oh, God.
and then being thrust into this like bizarre legal system where the rules are so unclear
Uh-huh.
and guilt just seems predetermined.
Yeah.
That's Josef K's reality
Mm.
in this book, in Kafka's The Trial.
Right.
And so we're going to be looking at some excerpts from the trial today.
Okay.
But we're going to be focusing mostly on the philosophical ideas
Okay.
that Kafka's exploring, like guilt, the absurdity of bureaucracy, the struggle for justice, and that isolating feeling of alienation.
I think Kafka was really good at like tapping into those
Yeah.
universal experiences that can leave us feeling powerless and confused.
No,
And you see that right away in the trial when it starts with Josef K's arrest. And right away you're just thrown into this world where things don't make sense.
It's such a strange arrest, too. Like, the officers are so casual.
Yeah.
They eat K's breakfast. They won't even tell him why he's being arrested.
Right. Well, that's a point. I mean, Kafka wants to show how bureaucracy can feel so illogical and dehumanizing.
Yeah.
It's like being caught in this system that's beyond your control, which is something I think a lot of us can relate to.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, have you ever had to deal with like a situation where the rules and procedures just felt so illogical that you just question like the whole system
Oh, yeah.
all the time?
Kafka takes that feeling and just like turns it up to 11.
Exactly. And this sense of like confusion and disorientation
Right.
only intensifies when K has his first encounter with the court.
Mm-hmm.
It takes place in this cramped, poorly lit attic room.
Mm-hmm.
The officials are oddly dressed.
The audience is being disruptive. The judge can't even like keep order.
It's almost as if like the setting itself reflects this kind of disordered state of the legal system.
Right. The chaotic environment is symbolic of how bureaucracy can feel arbitrary and incomprehensible.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, along with K, if like justice is even possible in such a system.
So then K tries to find help. Like he goes to the court usher's wife.
Yeah.
He talks to a painter named Tatarelli and a lawyer named Hold. But they all offer this conflicting advice. They make excuses.
Yeah.
They don't really help him at all.
This part of the story I think is interesting because it really shows how seeking external validation and help might not be the answer when you're dealing with a system that just feels so unyielding.
Right.
It's like K is constantly looking for answers outside of himself instead of confronting the deeper questions that are raised by his situation.
And as this is all happening, K is becoming more and more isolated.
Right.
Even though he insists that he's innocent, like the trial really takes a psychological toll on him.
This is where I think Kafka really gets into these, existential themes. Like, what is guilt? What does it mean to search for meaning when the world just seems absurd? And what's it like to face this impersonal force that just doesn't care about you at all?
There's one scene that really stood out to me, and it's when Kay's in the cathedral, and he talks to a priest who tells him that is how the guilty speak.
Ooh, that's a good line.
And it's like, that line just gets to the heart of like Kafka's exploration of guilt.
Yeah.
He's suggesting that guilt might not just be about doing something wrong.
Yeah.
It could just be this like inherent part of the human condition.
Yeah.
Especially when we're up against something as powerful and indifferent as the law.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you deal with that?
I don't know. It's a big question.
Yeah.
I think that's something that people have been thinking about for a really long time.
Yeah.
But
it's very human.
Yeah, it is a very human question. It's interesting that you mentioned like K looking for answers outside of himself.
Yeah.
Let's talk more about those characters who were supposed to be like helping him, It's almost like their help just makes things worse.
Yeah, exactly. Like their attempts to help often feel like manipulation or control.
Right.
Like the court usher's wife, for example. She offers Kay comfort information.
Yeah.
But she's really just using him for her own purposes.
Yeah, she's even trying to use Kay to protect herself from that student who is, part of this whole like oppressive system.
Right.
It seems like everyone is just trying to exploit Kay's situation to their own advantage.
Totally. And then you have Tittarelli, the painter,
Right.
who claims to know people in the court and promises to help Kay get acquitted. But his methods are all secretive, his paintings are strange,
Yeah.
and his promises just start to feel empty.
Yeah, it's like he's giving Kay this like false hope, pulling him deeper into this confusing legal system without actually giving him any solutions. And his studio, like even his studio feels as oppressive as the court itself.
Well, Kafka is so brilliant at using these settings to reflect what's going on inside Kay's head. Like, just as Kay feels trapped by the legal system, he's also confined by, like, the physical spaces he's in.
And then there's Kay's lawyer, Hold.
Right, yeah.
He's supposed to be defending Kay, but he keeps him completely in the dark about the case.
Yeah.
He's giving him these, like, vague reassurances, but then he keeps emphasizing how powerful the court is.
Right, yeah. I mean, Hold really represents this this kind of learned helplessness that you often see in bureaucracies.
Yeah.
Like he's accepted that the system is arbitrary. And he's encouraging Kay to just do the same.
Yeah, it's like he's saying, don't even bother fighting. Just try to make the system happy. Right. Which, I mean, that just makes Kay's situation seem even more hopeless.
Yeah, it really does.
It really does.
And I think this brings up a really big question. Like, what is true justice?
Yeah.
Can you achieve it through the legal system, or is it something more profound and existential?
I mean, that's a question that I think philosophers have been wrestling with.
Oh, yeah.
Forever. I mean,
forever.
Yeah, and Kafka, like, he doesn't really give us easy answers.
No.
In the trial, it just seems like this search for justice is totally futile.
Yeah.
And it just leads to more alienation and despair.
Yeah, and yet there's something about Kay's struggle that just keeps us engaged. It speaks to that like basic human need for meaning and understanding, even when we're facing these things that seem absurd and just impossible to overcome.
Absolutely. Kay is constantly looking for answers.
Yeah.
He's trying to make sense of everything, even when, like, everyone else is telling him to just give up.
Yeah.
I think it's that refusal to surrender that makes the trial such a thought-provoking book.
I think you're right. It's that defiance.
Yeah.
That unwillingness to be completely crushed by the system that makes Kay's final moments so powerful. Like, he's condemned, but he goes to his death with a kind of awareness.
Right.
Yeah. Recognizing the absurdity of it all.
And he says, like a dog.
Yeah.
It's a statement filled with shame, but also like a recognition that he's been totally dehumanized by the system.
Yeah.
He's been reduced to an animal, but he still manages to express this like
defiance. Yeah, and that's why the trial is such a timeless and important work.
Yeah.
It addresses, our deepest fears about the power of institutions, our search for meaning in a world that often feels indifferent.
Right.
And our struggle to remain human in the face of absurdity.
Before we wrap up, I think we need to discuss the idea of guilt.
Yeah.
It's like everywhere in the book.
Yeah, guilt is a crucial theme.
Yeah.
And Kafka handles it in a very subtle way. Kay says that he's innocent, but he always feels uneasy, like he's done something wrong.
Yeah.
And it's not just him. Like, guilt seems to be a part of, like, the world itself.
Yeah, and what's interesting to me is that Kafka never tells us, like, what Kay is supposed to be guilty of.
Right.
Like, we never even learn about his crime.
Right.
So we feel this, like, same uncertainty and unease that he does. It makes us question the whole idea of guilt,
Yeah.
Is it something objective based on actions, or is it just this feeling that that others can force on us?
I mean, that's a really great point.
Yeah.
It's like Kafka is saying that in a system as illogical. Right.
As the one he's depicting, guilt itself just becomes arbitrary.
Right.
We're all potentially guilty, whether we've done anything wrong or not.
Yeah, it's like the trial is like a metaphor for the human condition.
Yeah.
We're all caught up in this web of existence, subject to forces beyond our control. We're constantly seeking meaning and justice.
Right.
But often we only find absurdity and alienation.
And it's in this context of guilt and alienation that Kafka introduces the parable of the doorkeeper.
Right.
Which Kay hears from the priest in the cathedral.
Right.
And this adds another layer of complexity to the story.
So the parable is basically about this this man from the country who wants to enter the law, but he's blocked by a doorkeeper.
Yeah.
He waits his whole life, never getting in, and then he dies on the steps.
Yeah, it's bleak.
It's a really bleak
and mysterious story, and it kind of mirrors Kay's own frustrating and futile journey.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating about the parable is that it's open to different interpretations.
Right.
You know, some people see it as a commentary on how hard it is to access justice. Others see it as an allegory for the search for like spiritual enlightenment, and then still others see it as reflecting the the limits of human understanding.
It's like Kay, like we're left just trying to make sense of this perplexing tale.
Yeah.
What does it mean to try to enter the law? Is the doorkeeper like helpful or an obstacle? Why is the man denied entry even though he's like so persistent?
Right. And I think maybe the most unsettling part is the ending. Right before the man dies. The doorkeeper tells him that the door was only meant for him, and now it'll be closed.
It's like that that realization that maybe he missed his chance because he didn't act or he didn't understand.
It suggests that the chance to enter was always there.
Yeah.
But the man missed it because he didn't act or understand.
That's just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And it makes us wonder, like, is Kay also missing chances to break free?
Yeah.
Is he somehow like contributing to his own imprisonment?
Right. And I think, this brings us back to Kafka's main theme, the struggle for agency and understanding in these systems that feel arbitrary and beyond our control.
Yeah.
And I think the parable, like the novel, it suggests that real freedom might come not from looking for external validation or help, but from facing our own limitations and taking responsibility for our choices.
Yeah. That's a really powerful message.
It is.
But it's also really unsettling.
It is. It's both. Yeah.
It suggests that even when we're faced with injustice and absurdity, we still have some control,
I do.
a responsibility to make choices, even if those choices lead to our downfall.
And that's Kafka's lasting impact. He forces us to confront these these difficult truths about ourselves and the world. He challenges us to think critically, to question assumptions, and to find meaning in the midst of absurdity.
It almost feels like the trial is touching on something so human, that feeling of being like trapped by these systems that we don't understand and we just can't control.
Absolutely. Kafka was writing in the early 20th century, a time of just massive bureaucracies, growing anxieties about the individual's place in this increasingly complex world.
Yeah.
And I think those themes still resonate with us today.
Oh, definitely. Think about like even our own experiences with like healthcare systems, government agencies, even just large corporations.
Right.
We've all felt that frustration of just like trying to navigate a system with its own like illogical rules and procedures.
And that feeling of helplessness, of being lost in a maze is so central to the trial. Kay's journey is really a metaphor for our own struggles to make sense of systems that often feel arbitrary and just indifferent to our needs.
And in the midst of all this, Kafka is raising these like profound questions about guilt, justice, the meaning of life itself. It's like he's asking us to consider what it means to be human in a world that can often feel absurd and dehumanizing.
Exactly. The trial isn't just this legal thriller.
Right.
It's an existential exploration. It forces us to confront those uncomfortable truths about our own limitations and the ways in which we're all implicated in systems that can be both oppressive and absurd.
It is. It's a challenging book.
It is.
But it's also like so rewarding.
Yeah.
It makes you think. It makes you question.
Yeah.
And it just stays with you like long after you finish reading it.
Well, I think that's the power of Kafka's writing. Yeah. He doesn't offer these easy answers or neat resolutions.
Yeah.
Instead, he invites us to grapple with these big philosophical questions, alongside his characters.
Yeah.
And in doing so, we might come to a deeper understanding of
Yeah.
ourselves and the world around us.
So, listener, if you're looking for a book that will challenge you
Yes.
intellectually and emotionally, a book that will make you think differently about the world,
Uh-huh.
we highly recommend The Trial.
Absolutely.
It's a journey into the heart of human experience.
It is.
And it's a journey that will stay with you long after you've, turned that final page.
It really will.